All right. Well, again, thank you all for coming today. So before we jump into talking about U360, I just wanted to share with you a little bit about our organization, Manomet. Manomet is a nonprofit conservation and sustainability organization based in Plymouth, Massachusetts, but we do have staff all throughout the Western Hemisphere, including Central and South America. We started more than 50 years ago as an ornithology organization, and we were one of the first to track migratory birds. We started to see that bird migration was being impacted by climate change. So we started to evolve into a broader organization that incorporated people, since humans are responsible for tackling climate change. We firmly believe that people and nature need to find ways to coexist, which is why we work with businesses to change their practices to reach our larger conservation goals and address climate change more broadly. By empowering stakeholders through science, Manomet is working with partners to make a world where ecosystems and human communities thrive, and climate change and diversity, equity, and inclusion cut across all the work that we do. And U360 is a key part of this work. Our dream is for an army of U360 alums to go out and get amazing jobs in a wide range of industries in conservation and outside of it, and take their knowledge about business and sustainability to become leaders and change makers in those industries. So U360 is very different from a traditional or typical internship, and Laura will get more into this shortly. It is more of an experiential education and professional development program. So it's a bit of a hybrid between a course and a job. Now I'll pass it to Laura.
Thanks, Claire. All right, so I'm going to be talking for quite a bit here about expanding on what Claire just said about the mission and purpose of U360 and how it is very different from a typical internship. And when we refer to typical internships, what I mean is most often a student is hired by a company or an organization as an intern to work on some project or work within some department internally within the company. And so maybe you're working on rolling out a new product line or doing research or data analytics or social media marketing, but the work that you're doing is kind of internal within the company, and it's work that the company would be doing anyway. And that is very, very different from U360, where U360, like Claire said, is really an educational program, but because there's such an emphasis on career preparation, it also counts as an internship because you are interns of ours at Manomet. But the work that you're doing for us is not work that we would be doing anyway. The work that you're doing for us is really what helps you, the student, achieve the educational and professional development goals and objectives of the program. And so U360 is centered entirely around the entire focus of the program is your experience and your educational experience and your personal and professional development. And so a lot of times students are told that they need to get an internship to gain experience, but then when they go to apply for internships, they hear from potential internships that they need experience to get the internship. And it's like, okay, well, where am I supposed to get that experience? And so that's where U360 really comes in, is it's really preparing you for your first paid internship, your first summer internship, your first job out of college. And so this Venn diagram here really captures the overall kind of high level mission and purpose of U360. So the first circle, the yellow circle, is really the key focus of U360, which is preparing the next generation of change makers. So your generation is more educated and more passionate about the really complex challenges that we face today, more than any generation that's come before you. And climate change, we focus a lot on climate change in this program, but we could be talking about social justice, economic issues, environmental racism, any of these environmental, social, or economic issues that you feel personally passionate about. This will really help prepare you to be effective change makers in those areas. Because part of the issue that we see is that while your generation will be disproportionately impacted by these challenges. So it's your futures that are at risk here with climate change. Even though you'll be the most impacted, what I'm sure some of you can relate to this, what people of your age hear time and time again from the people who are in decision-making power, just saying things like, you're too young, you don't have enough experience, you don't know what you're talking about, you don't know how the world works. And we at Manomet do not subscribe to any of that thinking at all. And we really believe that the people who will be most impacted by these challenges need to have a seat at the table and be an active part of solving these problems. And whether that means people of people of the younger generation, people from lower socioeconomic levels, communities of color, these are all demographics that we know will be disproportionately impacted by the climate crisis. And so U360 is really about empowering your generation to be active participants in solving these complex challenges that will affect you all the most, and really giving you not only the interpersonal skills, the problem solving skills, the skills of how to work with other people, but also an understanding of how the world works. So coming out of college, having an understanding of how you can actually create sustainable, effective, long-lasting positive change. And so that's the primary objective of U360. And one way that we really believe that your generation can help to affect change is through your future jobs and workplaces and your careers. So as Claire said, our goal is not to have every one of you or every U360 alum go into conservation work or work for an environmental nonprofit. I mean, it's great if some of you want to do that, and if some alums do that. But what we want is students coming out of college going into all different industries and jobs armed with this knowledge of practical sustainability. So we want people going into engineering and manufacturing and clothing and apparel and hospitality and construction and transportation, you name it. We want people going into all of these different fields and bringing this understanding of how to create sustainability solutions to those industries that desperately need to start making changes. So we in order to really reach the targets that we need to as a planet, when it comes to the climate crisis, we need all hands on deck. And that means we need there are certain industries and companies and whatnot that really need to start changing their practices. And we really believe that there is so much power in you all knowing how to make change from the inside. So going into these jobs, being able to affect positive environmental and social change within your workplace. But in order for you to do that, you have to get hired. Obviously, you have to get those jobs. And so U360 is focused heavily on professional development. And in fact, we jokingly refer to it as like professional development boot camp. So it's a very supportive, safe environment for you to learn all of the skills that employers are most seeking that you're not being taught in classes. That's just not part of your coursework, is the professional skills. And so the entire U360 curriculum is focused on the skills that employers are most seeking and saying that they are not seeing as much with your generation. And so then the last circle, we really can't talk about U360 without talking about why it got started in the first place, which was the very original mission for U360 was to help small businesses change their practices. So small businesses, there are over 6 million of them in this country. And if you include people that are self-employed, which counts as a small business, it's actually close to 30 million small businesses in this country. But 6 million small businesses have a workforce, have employees, and that's a humongous number. They represent over 99% of the businesses in the United States, and they provide over 55% of the jobs in this country. And so they have a really, if you've ever heard the term that small businesses are the backbone of our economy, that's why. They have a very significant economic contribution. And collectively, they have a very large environmental footprint. So some research shows that they contribute about 65% of the pollution that comes from the business sector. And so even with that, small businesses are often overlooked and underserved when it comes to sustainability, because for a small business owner, their number one priority is survival and keeping their business in operation. Success for a small business owner is it's a very steep hill to climb. There are a lot of factors working against small businesses, especially in relation to the pandemic. As I'm sure you all know, a lot of small businesses closed during the pandemic. So survival is their number one priority. And because of that, they often don't have the time, the financial resources, the human resources, or even the bandwidth to prioritize sustainability, even if they wanted to. And a lot of times we find that business owners have a misperception about what we mean when we say sustainability, that they think it just means green business, or it's going to cost them a lot of money. And so U360 is really about getting to have conversations with small business owners across the country and kind of help them look at their business through an entirely different lens, and giving them the resources, the free resources, to be able to start making changes to their practices. And so I'll touch on that a little bit more at the end, to give you a sense of how much the work that you're doing in this program actually does lead to real change in the world. It's not just theoretical, like businesses actually do make changes after talking with U360 students. So yeah, so that's kind of the overarching Venn diagram. And then put a different way, we like to say that U360 gives college students real world experience in 3 areas that we see as absolutely vital to effective change making. So, and these are 3 things that you cannot learn through just coursework alone. So the first is career preparedness, and I touched on that already, but just to drill down a bit more, the entire curriculum is, like I said, focused on helping you develop the professional skills that employers are most seeking. So that includes written and oral communication, so all forms of professional communication, professionalism and work ethic, creative problem solving and strategic thinking, teamwork and collaboration, time and project management, how to organize your workload independently. And more recently, what more and more employers are looking for is people who have experience working virtually and working in a remote work setting. A lot of companies are not going back to how things were before COVID. And so working for a company virtually, starting a job remotely, having to build relationships with colleagues when you have never met them in person, how to conduct yourself professionally on Zoom or in Microsoft Teams, all of those things. More and more companies are looking for that, and it is very different than Zoom school. Zoom school is not the same as working remotely, where you can kind of turn your camera off and check out, or a lot of times people did Zoom school where you were taking classes asynchronistically and never even saw anybody. And so this is very, very different. So U360 is highly focused on preparing you for the skills that employers are going to be seeking when you start applying for jobs. The second is an understanding of applied business sustainability. So whether you are a business major, a STEM major, whether you're focused on environmental studies or science or sustainability, U360 is about kind of bringing those 2 worlds together and teaching you all about the fundamentals of sustainable business. So how a business can operate in a way that is not only good for the environment, for society and our economy, but also good for their company. Because one way to motivate businesses to start making changes is to talk to them about how it will also benefit their company. So for example, cutting back on their energy usage is not only good for the planet because it reduces greenhouse gases, but it is also really good for their bottom line, because the less energy they use, the less they're paying for. So U360 is really about helping students gain this real world understanding of of all of the different factors that you need to consider when creating solutions to complex problems. So part of when I said earlier, when, the people in power say things like, you don't know what you're talking about, you don't have enough experience. Part of where that comes from is that college students come out of school with a lot of ideas of changes that could be made there is some truth to without a full understanding of how everything works and how some things aren't feasible. Like there are some things that will not be feasible for businesses to do, or that could actually end up hurting their business more than helping them. And so U360 is really about helping you to gain this understanding of all of the different factors, all of the different stakeholders that have to be considered, where you might need to make concessions and compromises, and how to actually create practical, feasible solutions that will last and work and make a difference. So it's taking everything that you're learning in your classes and learning how to actually apply them in the real world. And then the last one is what I personally consider to be the most important. Everybody may have different opinions on this one, but I think this one is so critical, which is gaining an understanding and experience with working with people who have different viewpoints from your own. So how to work with people who think differently than you, because I don't think I will be shocking anybody when I say that we live in a very polarized, divisive, divided time right now, that there doesn't seem to be any issue that doesn't divide people. And what tends to happen in these scenarios is we tend to retreat to our own kind of communities of people who agree with us. And that is not how we're going to create change. That's not how we're going to solve these problems. We're going to solve them by coming together and working side by side with people who might look at things a little bit differently than we do, or who have different backgrounds and experiences than us. I don't mean, on the first day of U360, I probably burst everybody's bubble by saying that the percentage of people that are motivated simply by saving the planet is a very small percentage, that we need to learn how to talk with people about sustainability and speak to their values and speak to what matters to them, because everybody has things that are important to them. And for example, like I said, when it comes to business owners, keeping their business in operation is what's going to matter to a business owner. So if you can talk to them about sustainability from that perspective, they will actually listen to you, as opposed to coming forward with, the destruction of the planet and you're contributing to that, and nobody's going to be receptive to that. And so it's really about starting by listening to people. We have gotten so far away from that in our society of listening, like we're all just yelling into our echo chambers, and we need to stop and actually listen to other people and try to understand where they're coming from. And once you do, then you can frame the things that you care about in a way that speaks to what they care about. And it's really about, you may be coming from point A and they may be coming from point B, but you're trying to get to point C together. And that's what U360 is really about, because you'll be talking to a couple dozen business owners who will be all over the spectrum on how they feel about sustainability, or even what they know about sustainability. You may end up talking to somebody who doesn't believe in climate change, and that's just not something that happens in your college experience very often. So especially my environmental majors, they spend 4 years surrounded by classmates who think about these issues exactly the same way that they do, taught by professors who think about it the same way they do. And that's just not representative of everybody in this country. And so you'll be talking to, a couple dozen different business owners from all different backgrounds, ages, experiences. And then you'll also be getting getting to do this with your fellow interns, because it is of critical importance to me when I compile the U360 cohorts and classes that I create classes that have maximum diversity in every aspect of that word. So there will be racial and ethnic diversity, age diversity, gender diversity, geographic diversity, people who are born in this country, people who are not born in this country, different majors, so that you all have the opportunity to learn from one another as well, and learn from each other's backgrounds and experiences. So hopefully by now you can see how U360 is not like a typical internship, and that it really is this program embedded in a nonprofit with um, with a much bigger mission than just any typical internship might have. And so again, U360 really is more of an experiential education and professional development program. So at times it's going to feel like a course, like a college course. At times it'll feel like a job. And all the time it should feel like some combination of both. And it has a curriculum and learning objectives, which is also very different from a typical internship. And so I just want to take a minute to go through the phases of the program and kind of go over that curriculum. So U360 is a 2-semester program, or if you're on the trimester or quarter schedule, it would be all 3 of it's from September through May. That's probably an easier way to say it. And so the program is divided into these 4 phases. And the first phase is when we do our educational workshops and career skills training sessions. So we do a series of educational workshops on really getting everybody from all different majors speaking the same language about business sustainability. So most students come into this program without prior knowledge about business sustainability. So if you're sitting there like, I don't know anything about sustainable business, that is totally okay. So phase 1 is about teaching you about business sustainability. And so we do workshops on like business management 101 for all of the non-business majors, the realities of running and owning a small business, how to interact with small business owners. We do a series of environmental workshops and how they relate to businesses. So everything from the climate crisis to waste, water, energy, toxins. And so we do 2 weeks of educational workshops, and there's a lot of reading materials and multimedia materials that go along with that. Then we move into 4 weeks of training. And so this is when we do some of the professional development, like the do's and don'ts of professional communication, both written and face-to-face verbal communication, time and project management, professionalism and confidentiality. And then we spend a lot of time training you on the assessment and the interview that you'll be conducting with the businesses. So if you're here today, presumably you have read the description of U360 and you know that the bulk of the program involves you interviewing small businesses about their practices, their current sustainability practices. And what that means is that you'll actually be administering an assessment. It's essentially a sustainability survey with open-ended questions and multiple choice questions for these businesses. And so during phase 1, we go through that in exhaustive detail so that you fully understand all the questions that you'll be asking and how to conduct the assessment. And we do lots of practice, and you practice with each other. So you are really, really ready and prepared and very well supported when you head into phase 2. Also during phase 1, the work that you're doing outside of our workshops is researching the businesses that you want to contact during phase 2. So all of you will get to choose your own businesses. We don't hand you a list of businesses that you have to just call on our behalf. You get to choose the businesses that you're most interested in. And we help you with all of that as well. So then in phase 2, you actually are contacting these businesses and requesting an interview with them about their practices. And so we only meet for an hour and a half a week during phase 2. You'll be part of a team. We break down the entire class into teams of no more than 8. So you'll have a small group that will be your colleagues for most of the year. And teams often become very close with one another and become close friends, and like best friendships have been made on teams, and even from totally different schools. And so during phase 2, you're spending most of your time working on your own schedule, again, with a lot of support and mentorship. We never like throw you into the deep end by yourself. And you're reaching out to these businesses and conducting interviews with them. And every interview you conduct, you transfer that data to me, and I process it and follow up with each business to give them their sustainability scores. And I give them access to our online toolkit where they can utilize the resources we have to actually change their practices should they choose to do so. And so phase 2 is really where you get the bulk of it's really where the majority of your educational and professional development happens. Because in talking to all these different business owners, you learn a ton about how sustainability is being applied in the real world or how it's not. And if it's not, why isn't it? You also, for all of you know, any business majors, you learn a ton about how businesses operate in the real world, because you're essentially getting to quote unquote look under the hood of a couple dozen businesses. You're actually talking to the business owner about all facets of how they run their company. And then because you'll be independently reaching out to all these businesses and corresponding with them, you alone will be doing the interviews with them. I won't be with you. You will not have a teammate with you. You learn so much about professional communication, how to manage a high volume of correspondence, how to conduct yourself professionally in all different settings, how to be adaptive, because small business owners are busy and they will inevitably cancel or reschedule or not get back to you. So you learn how to, you know, be adaptive. You learn how to think on your feet. And these, I promise you, these are all things that employers are very much seeking in their workforce. And so you get a ton of experience with that. And then in phase 3, the phase 3 and 4 are essentially combined. Oh, and actually I should back up for 1 second and say that in phase 2, in the fall, because phase 2 is about 20 weeks over the fall and spring. And in the fall, you get to interview a whole variety of different businesses. And in the spring, every student chooses one subject matter or industry or topic to focus on. And you interview all businesses that fall under that subject matter. So you could pick an industry, like Max chose the transportation industry. We've had students choose the food system, clothing and apparel, the healthcare system. You could pick a topic, like all businesses related to animals or children. And then you can also choose an owner demographic. So we've had a lot of students focus on women-owned businesses, Black-owned businesses, AAPI-owned businesses, Latinx-owned, Indigenous-owned, LGBTQ-owned businesses. So you could interview all businesses that fall under an owner demographic that are underrepresented in the business world. So then, yes, that gives you the opportunity to focus on a subject that you personally care about. And one really amazing benefit of U360 is that it also helps you to build your professional network of contacts. And so if you have not yet been told this by somebody, probably in your career services office, very little is more important when it comes to job seeking than your network. It's like your resume may be amazing, but who you know and who can help you connect to somebody and who can make introductions for you really supersedes most anything. I mean, you need the resume to back it up once you actually meet with somebody, but when you have connections with people that can introduce you to people in the fields that you want to work in, that there's nothing that really compares to that. And U360 helps you to start building those relationships with professionals. And so in the spring, you get to do that within an industry or sector that you might want to go into after college. So you're already starting to build connections and relationships in that field. I've had students get offered jobs during their phone call, like when you graduate, call me. I've had many students keep in touch with businesses that they interviewed that helped connect them to the job that they have now. So that's really an invaluable part. So then the phases 3 and 4 combined, we end the program with the last 6 weeks where each student selects one business that they interviewed to create a sustainability action plan for that business. And it's really where you get to step into the shoes of a consultant and pull together everything you've learned throughout the entire year. So everything that you learned in phase 1, everything you've learned from all of your business interviews, and you get to dive deep into one company and create an original action plan with highly researched, feasible, practical recommendations for how the business can improve their overall sustainability. And you make the case for how those recommendations are not only good for people and the planet, but it's also really good for the company and will make the business more resilient to the challenges that they're facing. And then you turn that action plan into a pitch as if you were presenting it to your client, who is the business. And then we have a multi-round series of we have a multi-round competition where you present your action plan to judges who will then ask you questions on the spot to defend your action plan and challenge your thinking. So you have to kind of do a Q&A and think on your feet. And then that preliminary judging round will result in 3 finalists who score the highest, moving on to our capstone competition, which is also our commencement event. So it's a live commencement and capstone competition where the 3 finalists compete. They present their action plan live in front of, it's virtual, but live in front of an audience and 3 judges, where they also have to do a Q&A with the judges. And then they're competing for the title of Manomet's Next Generation Scholar and a $1,000 scholarship award. And Claire can put a link in the chat to the video of this year's capstone that we just had about a month ago. So if any of you are interested in seeing what the commencement looked like and what those action plan or what you would be aspiring to do at the end of the program, that's a great way to see it. So that's an overview of the 4 phases of the program. And I'm gonna pause my speaking and turn it over to Max for a moment to talk about one really invaluable aspect of U360, which is our alumni assistant team, of which Max is a part of and has been for a couple of years. And he's going to tell you about what the alum assistant team is and how they support you throughout your year in the program.
Thanks, Laura. So as Laura mentioned, this program is really focused on your professional development. And as Laura said, we're never just going to throw you in the deep end and leave you on your own. And so a big part of support that we offer through this program is the alumni network. So as Laura said, you'll be grouped into a team with about 8 other team members, and each team will have several alumni assigned to them. And alumni are students who've gone through the program previously and are now back to volunteer their time to help you on your professional development journey. So it kind of fills the role of a TA, but I think it's way more comprehensive and way more functional than TAs were in my college experience. So the main thing that the alumni network will fill is after-hour support as well as weekend support. So as Laura mentioned, a lot of this work you get to kind of, especially phase 2, you're going to get to kind of create your own hours, figure out when you want to work on it. And so a big part of that is also having that support whenever you end up working on it. So during the working week hours, you'll have access to Laura and Claire, and then you'll also have access to your alumni network after working hours or on the weekend. And also, these alumni have gone through the program before, so we know the struggles, we know what it's like. We've created our own ways to get through it. So like tapping into the alumni network is a great way to get help if you're feeling stuck, or maybe there's something you're really weak on, you just want to work on. The alumni are there to help you with whatever you need, whether it's practicing your phone calls or your script, whether it's figuring out how to organize something, whether it's just wanting to get a better understanding of what it's like to apply for jobs. So the alumni network is a great tool. It's a huge network of wealth. And let's say you get assigned me as your alumni, but you wanted to talk to a different alumni assistant on a different team, there's nobody stopping you. Alumni are always welcome to connect with you, get to know you. And it's a great opportunity to build out your professional network, as Laura was saying, create connections with those who share interests or maybe have strengths that you're looking to work on yourself. And also, the alumni assistants will meet you where you are. So don't ever feel like you're being judged or, the beautiful part is, well, Laura is your manager. She's also your mentor, but sometimes it can be intimidating to have both of those relationships happening at once. So your alumni network is a great place to be vulnerable and just say, hey, I don't get this, or I need help, or whatever it may be. And the alumni will meet you where you are and figure out how to get you the help that you need. So there's nobody better to work with than students who've gone through the program themselves. And that is definitely a really unique aspect of U360, not just in terms of support, but also that opportunity to start building out your professional network and figuring out what kind of skills you're going to need to land that dream job outside of school or that first internship that you want.
That was awesome. Thanks, Max. Yes. Mentors galore. That's the best part about U360 is all of us, Claire, myself, and all of the alumni assistants, our entire focus is on the success of each and every one of our students that participate in the program. So Claire, I'll turn it to you now.
Yes, there we go. So I know we're coming up on I believe, our last 15 minutes, so I will kind of go through this smoothly. But moving on to the nuts and bolts of U360, as Laura said, this is a full year program, so you're committing to participating in from September through May. It is an average of 10 hours a week of work. Some weeks it's a little less, some weeks it's a little more. It really depends on where we are in the curriculum. But there's also a lot of flexibility as you don't have to travel anywhere to do the work. We accept up to 40 students a year from all over the country. So you'd be working with peers from different colleges, majors, backgrounds, ages, geographic locations, you name it. Again, as Laura's been saying, the entire internship takes place over Zoom. And I'll just add one quick thing, which is that U360 has always been virtual, not just since COVID. So unlike other programs that went virtual over the last couple of years, U360 has the benefit of being extremely well tested, as it's always, it's been virtual since its founding. And as Laura said, you'll be learning those really kind of sought after, highly valuable skills of working remotely. Now U360 is designed for undergraduates, specifically sophomores through seniors during the year that you're participating, which means that we're asking, rising sophomores through seniors to apply. However, we do take graduate students on a case-by-case basis. So if you fall into that category, we still more than welcome you to apply. And then lastly, as Laura, it is an unpaid program, but as Laura said, it is more like an education and workforce development program, or that is why it is unpaid, but there's also no cost at all to you to participate. That goes down to, if you can't get free printing on campus, we will reimburse you for printing. However, if your school offers credit for internships or co-op programs, we're more than happy to work with you on getting credit for the program, whether that's meeting with your program's director, filling out paperwork, completing evaluations, or really anything in between. But just to clarify, that is entirely up to your school, your department, and your major, whether or not the program can count for credit. And whether or not you do decide to take it for course credit, we highly recommend and strongly encourage students to take U360 in place of a class in your schedule. And this is just to ensure that you have the time available to devote to the internship, as it is a rigorous program. But being rigorous is what yields amazing results for students participating. So in order to get the most out of it, we do recommend that you take it in place of a class. And then a little bit about the history of U360. Laura started the program in the spring semester of 2016 with just 3 students at a college in Portland, Maine, where she currently lives. And including this just prior class now, 6 years later, we've had 139 students who have done the program from 41 different colleges from all over. Those 139 students have interviewed nearly 1,650 small businesses located in all 50 states and 3 countries. And they've ranged in size from 1 to 5,400 employees, representing all different types of industries, from manufacturers to medical offices to summer camps to nonprofits, breweries, and really anything you can think of. We've also covered a wide range of those ownership demographics that Laura mentioned before. And this diversity in both business demographics and industries, as Laura said, is some of the best part, what we think is one of the best parts of U360, because you are building that professional network and you're developing relationships with professionals who you might want to work with after you, in a field that you might want to pursue after college. Now I will hand it back to Laura.
All right, so we're going to just wrap up with talking briefly about the outcomes and impacts of U360. So I'm going to let Max in a moment touch on how it impacted him as a student when he did the program, his own personal professional development. But I want to touch really quickly on the businesses. So the businesses, as I said, one objective of U360 is to help small businesses operate more sustainably, to help achieve our overall overarching goals of really tackling climate change. And so we ask every business after they participate in the program to complete an anonymous survey. And consistently since the time we started measuring this data, since the beginning of the program, we have over 50% response rate on that survey, which is an incredibly high response rate. So this is very solid data that I'm about to share, that consistently about 75% of businesses say that it was the experience of being asked these questions about their business was highly valuable. And about 40% of them say that it's highly likely they'll make changes to their practices in the next 6 to 12 months, just as a result of that conversation with the student. And I know 40% sounds terrible if that was like a midterm grade that you got, but if you put it in context, 40%, that means over a third of businesses say that it's highly likely they're going to change their business practices just after talking to you for an hour, which is astounding because it takes a lot to make changes. And you're just undergraduate students asking questions. You're not even giving them consulting or advice. So that's really amazing. And then we follow up with them a year later and find that a high percentage do actually make changes. And a significant percentage of those businesses say that U360 influenced those changes. So the work that you're doing actually has real world impact, that businesses make changes because of the conversations you have with them, which is incredibly rewarding for the students who do this program. On the career side, we've been talking a lot about professional development. So you may be asking the question, like, does it actually work? Do U360 students get jobs? And I can say, yes, absolutely, they get amazing jobs. It's especially during COVID, like the percentage of students graduated from college during COVID who got jobs like right out of school was really incredible and really amazing jobs. So I've lost count of how many alumni tell me that the first thing they get asked in job interviews is, tell me about this U360 internship. We've never seen anything like this on a resume. It really will stand out on a resume. I promise you that. The things that you get to do in this program are very, very different than what most college students get to do in an internship. So that will stand out, that will get their attention. And then the skills that you develop will shine through in your application materials and in your interviews and will really set you apart in a very competitive job market. And some of the jobs that students have gone on to get have been incredibly impressive. I have one alum who within a year of graduating college was promoted to executive director of her nonprofit that she was hired at. Max has his own awesome stories about the jobs that he's gotten as a result of U360 after graduating. And yeah, I could go on and on about that. And when I provide references for students with prospective employers, I just hear time and time again, like, you know, we've never seen a candidate like this in this age group. So-and-so was in a category all of their own. And so it really, it's working when it comes to helping students land the jobs that they want right out of college and really setting themselves apart in a very crowded applicant pool. So Max, would you like to just wrap up by telling us about your own personal and professional development in U360?
Yeah, definitely. So I graduated from Brandeis University and I did the program as a senior. Definitely recommend using it to replace a class. I got it to get some credit. It is a serious time commitment, so take that seriously. And I think what was really interesting for me was, you know, as a senior at a small liberal arts school, really focused on theory. You know, I really was like, I'm ready to change the world. I want to be a consultant. I know what these businesses need. And it was a really humbling experience to go through the U360 program because it really woke me up to a lot of the things that you're not learning in a classroom of what are those actual barriers business face? How do you get face-to-face time with them? How do you build trust enough to get someone to listen to you or even consider your feedback? So it was a really humbling experience of, you know, kind of making me realize, you know, what it takes in the real world to make the change that I think, you know, we all want to make as those who are focused on sustainability and creating a more sustainable future. One thing for me in terms of the professional development side was I always felt like I was great at communicating professionally, mostly like orally or over the phone. However, the U360 program really showed me some of my weaknesses as well, which really came out in written professional communication. And the program does a lot to, you know, give you those tools and things you need to improve it. But just like college, this program is what you make of it. So I knew going in that once I identified my weaknesses, I wanted to spend the rest of my time in U360 figuring out how to build those up and make myself the best version of myself I could, so that when I'm writing cover letters and trying to do those things after school, that my skills shined through. So I really recommend like Laura's program. The reason it's so long is also really helpful because it allows you to get feedback constantly and figure out what you can do to improve over time. No other internship is typically this long. Usually, right, it's 3 months in a summer and you're out. You barely got to make professional connections, let alone learn about yourself and figure out how you can become a better version of yourself. Also, Laura gives you great tools to keep yourself organized. I thought I was organized, 3.6 GPA, honor roll, all that kind of stuff. But when you're managing correspondence with 200 plus, leads at a time, and now that I'm in the professional world, I'm juggling even more points of contact. And so just having that experience, getting those tools of figuring out how to juggle multiple things, how to stay organized, how to keep yourself on track has been invaluable in terms of my professional career. And I've gotten promotions time and time again because I'm able to keep myself organized, keep myself on top of it, and do more than my coworkers. And so I cannot emphasize how much just getting these basic skills nailed down to a T will help you and pay dividends year over year, job after job. Also, what I loved about the program too was its multi-phase approach. So like I mentioned, I wanted to be a consultant. I thought I knew what the world needed. And the fourth phase, the capstone, is a great opportunity to really kind of put on that hat, take what you've learned throughout the year after you've been humbled and really gotten to peek under the hood of some of the challenges real business owners and entrepreneurs face, to then put on that thinking cap and try your best. And for me, it was a great opportunity to just pour all of that energy and effort I'd put in over the year in terms of trying to figure out how I can make that positive impact. And again, it was very humbling, very fun, and was one of the most rewarding parts of the program for me. So whether you're really interested on figuring out how to grow your professional network or work on your professional development or figure out what it's like to be a consultant, this program will have a little bit of everything, and you can always latch on to whatever drives you the most or motivates you the most. And again, cannot emphasize how supportive this network is. Laura will make herself available to you if you need help. Claire, the alumni networks, it's not a traditional work environment where you I can't go talk to the boss, or I might look dumb if I ask this question. It is a learning environment. We're all going to make mistakes, and we want to grow together and support each other. And also, one thing that I never really valued until I started working in the real world was how Laura does a great job of setting an example for what a healthy virtual work environment should be. So it's also about understanding, how should you be treated, how to set healthy boundaries, how to do the work you need to do without sacrificing your own mental health or physical health. So it's really great to work with a program director and assistant who really value you as a person and want to help you become the best version of yourself. So I've never experienced a program like this or job like U360. It's just the best program. I've been volunteering for years. It's just amazing. So if you have any questions or any concerns, please reach out to me or Laura, and be happy to give you guys more information.
Thanks, Max. You want to throw your email in the chat, and then Claire, take us home.
All right. So lastly, before we adjourn for today, because I know we're getting close to that time, we just have one little last video to show you, which is the culmination of testimonials from other alums from U360. So I'm just going to play that.
U360 did a lot for me.
To me, the U360 program was and is incredible because it focuses on personal and professional development, which a U360 member carries throughout their whole career.
The U360 program had an amazing impact not only in my knowledge and sustainability, but also helped my professional development as well. And after this amazing experience, I was able to see things from more than one perspective, and I was also able to increase my own personal self-confidence as well.
A few weeks ago, I had a phone interview, an hour-long phone interview for an internship, and I was super comfortable doing it. And a lot of people in our generation could not say that, talking on the phone for an hour. But because of U360, I've gained my confidence, and as a result, I actually got that internship. So I'm really grateful that I had that experience my sophomore year.
when I was able to present at both the Capstone presentations, I was networking with sustainability professionals, and I was able to practice my public speaking skills, which I've already relied on countless times since then. And so it really helped grow me professionally in ways that I will be able to talk about in interviews for years to come.
One thing that I thought was really important about this internship was the ability to actually see how sustainability works in the real world and have that hands-on experience with business owners and organizations. I think a lot of that has to do with Laura being such an encouraging and supportive program manager and always rooting us on at every step of the way, saying that you can do this, always having our back. And so I will forever be thankful for that.
Today I hold a full-time job in the energy industry, and I know that at work I use the professional communication and organization skills that I learned in U360 every single day.
At the beginning of U360, I was not very confident with my communication skills. I was too scared to make phone calls. I was nervous about sending professional emails and overall professional communication. And by the end of U360, I was able to speak with and interview 32 small business owners about their sustainability.
I would say the program taught me how to write professional emails, to have professional conversations, to have the confidence to pick up the phone and talk to clients. And most of all, it gave me the tools to talk about environmental issues in a way that anyone could understand. And I just wanted to say that this program was great for me and helped me get this job here in Washington, D.C.
I focused on women-owned businesses, and I was able to learn so much from these women that I could look up to, learn from, and just use the experiences that they were offering me to further myself, my professionalism, and my education. It's such an amazing experience that I would tell anybody to gain.
El programa U360 me dio las herramientas y el soporte para crecer profesional y personalmente. Me ayudó con mi confidencia y con mi disciplina a través de las llamadas, de los correos y de las entrevistas para aprender sobre los negocios, a lo cual también la gran importancia de hablar sobre la sostenibilidad en varias maneras para sostener el tema, por lo menos en la mente de la gente, que podemos hacer algo, que necesitamos tomar acción, que necesitamos la ayuda de ese granito para hacer la diferencia.
The problems that we're facing as environmental issues worsen are amplified for small businesses that often operate on such thin margins already. But U360 showed me that there is strength in numbers. If we can come together as a team from all different backgrounds and learn from one another, then we can truly change the world. I love the U360 network that we've built, and I can't wait to see how it keeps growing.
Being a kind of shy college student, not really sure of myself, not really sure what to say to people or how to communicate, U360 gave me the tools and the confidence to be able to walk up to somebody and comfortably talk to them about sustainability. That's not something that I think I would have gained in the classroom, just because you're talking with other students. But outside of the classroom, when you're in charge of talking to business owners as a college student, it gives you this amazing opportunity to work on those professional skills. And that's something U360 absolutely did for me, and I am grateful every day that I did this program.
Thank you for watching this informational video about the U360 Business Sustainability Internship Program. For more information, please go to manomet.org. Thank you.